Hello friends. For today's video, I wanted to provide a helpful guide to finding special editions. I know when I was first starting my home library, a lot of times I would be watching a video here on BookTube or I'd be on Bookstagram and I would see a really beautiful edition of a book that I really enjoyed and I would think, what is that edition? Where did they get that edition? Can I get that edition? And I know I'm not the only person who has thought that. And as soon as I started to feel like I had a grasp on all the different kinds of book boxes and alternate sleeve companies and things that are out there, suddenly I'd start seeing all these other beautiful editions, and I have felt as though I'm always behind. I never know about these editions until it's too late. And I know many of you have felt that same thing, where you'll see an edition and you love it, and it's for a series that you really, really adore. And as soon as you find out that an edition exists and you go to look into it, either you have trouble even finding out what that edition is, and then if you do happen to find out what edition it is, by the time you find out, it's no longer available to purchase. So I wanted to provide not only just a list of a bunch of the different companies out there that you might want on your radar. Beyond that, I wanted to also provide information about these various different companies, and then also some tips that might help you get your hands on these. And then I also want to discuss, if you weren't able to purchase the book, what are some options for getting them secondhand. I am going to be working with Pango for this video. A big thank you to them for working with me today. I'll talk about them a little bit more later when we're discussing how you can get your hands on a lot of these, but jumping into it and starting with all the different companies. I'm going to go through them relatively quick, and then I'll get into more specifics. Starting with all these different companies, which I will have this list in the description bar down below, we have Owl Crate, LitJoy Crate, Illuma Crate, Fairy Loot, the Waterstones Exclusives, The Broken Binding, Subterranean Press and Grim Oak Press, Goldsboro, The Bookish Box, Barnes & Noble Exclusives, Folio Society, Easton Press, Kickstarter, and Fay Crate. We also have some alternate sleeve companies. We have Nerdy Inc., Juniper Books, Kraken Book Company, and the Librarian Box. There's a few on that list that I think most of us are aware of, but then a lot of those other ones I'm very curious, how many of those have you even heard of? I bet you've seen the editions of them, but you might not know where they came from, and so hopefully this video will let you know that information. So I want to provide some categories for each of these. The categories are going to be pure subscription box, meaning there is no exclusive editions available to anyone unless they are a sub, which is actually only one that I could tell from this list. There's a hybrid, so sometimes what I was just describing, where sometimes it's subscription and sometimes you're able to get them available to individuals even if they're not on the subscription. Sometimes they're a retailer and then they occasionally have their own exclusives, that sort of thing. We have just retailers, which typically means that they have their own store, not always though. We also have the sleeves, like I said, and then what I'm calling newsletter. So this could have been listed under retailer, but the newsletter ones are more so ones that they will sell out. And if you do not know about the editions, by the time you find out, you're not going to be able to get them. The people who know about them that are on their newsletter are going to find out and they're going to purchase them as soon as they're available. We'll start with those ones. So first, Grim Oak Press and Subterranean Press are pretty similar. In fact, I think Grim Oak might be a part of Subterranean, or Subterranean is a part of Grim Oak, but you see them together pretty often. These are relatively expensive. They're some of the higher priced items, and they are also very high quality. These do not get put out constantly the way you see Illuma Crate and Fairy Loot doing, but when they do have a special edition come out, it is very, very nice. I have one from them. It is for Spinning Silver. I was very impressed with how nice it is. You'll see sometimes they have lettered and numbered editions. Some of them are a lot more expensive than others. There's a lot of different kinds of special editions. You'll find that they're bound really nicely. The pages are beautiful. They have illustrations. They're signed. So while it is expensive, if you are a really big fan of one of the things that ends up being sold here, if you can afford it, then it's probably a good one to have on your radar. And like I said, I'm categorizing this under newsletter because a good example of one that by the time I discovered they existed, they don't sell them anymore would be the Red Rising set. And I also wanted to say, while I will provide information about where you can get some of these secondhand if you missed your chance, that sort of thing, you're probably not going to find these. Pretty much if somebody purchases them and they spend this much money on them, they're not looking to sell it. They're so expensive that they're probably too much for people to purchase only to turn around and try to sell it for a higher price, because that's risky because you're spending so much upfront. But the editions really truly are quite beautiful. Easton Press and Folio Society are less fantasy specific. They're much more to do with classics, and you'll find leather-bound editions, and these are, I believe, the most expensive ones on this list for a single book. Some of them, they'll sell an entire series or a trilogy, something like that, and so for the entire set, it'll be expensive, but when you're just talking about individual book prices, Easton Press, it's hundreds and hundreds of dollars for sometimes a single book. So it's a lot of money, but if you're a fan of classics, definitely give these ones a look because they have a lot. And for those of you who, like many of us, like me, who are fantasy fans, a lot of these ones will have really beautiful editions of Lord of the Rings specifically, because that is seen by a lot of people as a classic. I will provide images and video clips of a lot of the examples of what you get out of all these companies, but Folio and Easton Press, I don't own anything from, because it's not, excuse me, necessarily books that I tend to gravitate toward, and because they're so expensive, I don't have any from them, so I can't show them, but I'll have some clips from their website. Apologies that I don't have any that I can actually show you. The last one that I'm categorizing as newsletter, I could have put it under hybrid, but the hybrid portion is very new, so I'm just going to stick to having this one under newsletter, and that would be LitJoy Crate. So previously, LitJoy Crate would not put out that many exclusive editions, but when they did, if you were a newsletter subscriber, you would get access early, and sometimes the things that you would get access to, they're gonna sell out within the newsletter subscribers, so that by the time it would have been available to the public, it's already sold and you're not gonna get a chance. For me, I do have a subscription to LitJoy, and the reason being, it costs about $10 a month. Not about, it does. It costs $10 a month. But you earn points when you have the subscription, and you can actually use your points on the books. So if there's a special edition you want, you can use the accumulated points to help pay for it. And I've done that before, and it's great because then you still have access, and access early, I mean. And then you also, it's like you're getting your money's worth. It's just making little payments periodically, which I kind of like that structure. I do think $10 a month for not anything until you see something you like is a bit of an ask, but I do like that they allow you to add those accumulated points up and then put them toward the things you purchase. I will say, price-wise, they're a little expensive, but the quality is great. Illustrated and annotated. I constantly kept thinking, these aren't actual annotations by the author, right? I mean, did they somehow find a way to print handwritten annotations? I didn't even know that was a thing for a long time. So if you've ever been interested in LitJoy, I can tell you that having the annotated editions, I wanted to reread it as soon as I got it because I thought it was such a great way to make a special edition for the fans, because that is going to add an extra element of excitement, I think, to the reading experience. So the reason it's under this is because that's been how it's worked most of the time. It could have fallen under hybrid because I think they just started an actual subscription service, and I have one of the books, so I was able to purchase it after the fact, but I don't know that that's always going to be the case. I don't know that they'll always have people selling them secondhand. So I can't comment too much on the subscription portion of it because it is so brand new, but just wanted to give the heads up that that is there. I mentioned the Sleeves Company, but I just want to reiterate which ones those are and what that means. So the Sleeve Companies means that they're standard editions of the books, which they'll usually tell you the ISBN just to be perfectly clear. It means that you can take the standard edition, remove the sleeves, and then put new sleeves on. And Juniper Books, what they'll often do is they will have it so that on the shelf, it creates an entire image. You've probably seen people's bookshelves with the Juniper Books lined up. They look really great. And that one, Nerdy Ink, Kraken, and Foxwit, those were the other ones that were specific to sleeves. Nerdy Ink makes some really cool editions. I think their art style is really cool. And what's exciting is that if you like a lot of the ones that they do, it's one individual doing all the work. So props to them. It's amazing what they do, but also you're going to have that style across different series that aren't necessarily typically related. And I think that that's pretty awesome. because then you have kind of a cohesive style across your shelves, or maybe you can have a specific shelf in your house that has the Nerdy Ink editions. So I really like what they do. They don't put alternate sleeves out that often because it is, from what I understand, just one person doing all the design and then the printing and all of that. So they don't put them out that much, but when they do, it's pretty exciting. Kraken is brand new. They've only officially done one set. The way I had my shelf set up before, you used to actually see them. It was a Store My Archive set. If you remember, there's Roman numerals and kind of a horizon, it looks like, if you were watching my videos and saw them in the back. I have them elsewhere at the moment, but they have, I think it looks really, really cool, and that's their first set. They haven't done another since. The next one they're going to be doing is Greenbone. So for those of you who are fans of the Greenbone saga, you might enjoy that set, and I think it's cool because they're a newer company. So they're just kind of getting started. If you want to go show them your support, they did ask for submissions for what people wanted to see next. I think Greenbone won, and so I like that they have that more personal connection where they're trying to find things that consumers would enjoy. Earlier, when I was mentioning the sleeves, I mentioned the book box, the librarian box. And this one I have under hybrid because they do put out books and they also put out sleeves. I have a sleeve for Babel that I've held up a number of times, and I actually think it looks even better in person than it looked online. I mentioned that the librarian box is a hybrid, so I'm going to continue on with the hybrid boxes and companies. So next up we have Owlcrate, Illumicrate, and Fairy Loot. And I'm lumping these all together, one, because a lot of you have probably heard of them, and two, because they all have a subscription service portion of what they do, but then they also have exclusives, and the exclusives will be available even if you're not a part of the subscription. The downside for people who aren't subscribers to it is that a lot of times the subscribers will get access before the general public. One thing that helps is that now you can sign up for their newsletter or their wait list, and sometimes being on that then allows you to get access to the other exclusives that they're doing that are separate from the subscription boxes. Fairy Loot, Illumicrate, and Owlcrate are, I would say, relatively reasonable with their prices. They're not going to be like the Easton Press and cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I actually think you get a pretty good amount of extra content with your exclusives for the price. A lot of times you get artwork on the sleeve. Sometimes you get artwork right when you open the book on the front cover and on the back. A lot of times you get foiling, you get beautiful designs on the naked hardbacks, you get sprayed edges. So there's a lot that gets put into them. I think Illumicrate and Fairy Loot do a little bit more than Owlcrate. Sometimes Owlcrate just changes up the color scheme and that's about it. I will say the Strange the Dreamer set, the exclusives by Owlcrate, I was quite impressed by because they were a lot better than what I typically see in their subscription boxes. So I hope they keep making exclusives separate because they're quite nice. Switching now to the Broken Binding. This is a newer one, and it is, well, newer to the subscription service game. I'm not actually sure how long the retailing part of their company has been around for, but you can just purchase books from their website. You can get exclusives, and then there's a subscription as well. And even the subscription has different aspects to it and different accessibility depending on whether you're a subscriber or not. I do think the Broken Binding could be a little clearer with what's what. It can be a little confusing at times, but I do think they make beautiful books. Sometimes I'm like, how is this even the price that it is? Because the amount that you have to pay for what you get is pretty impressive, and it's always wrapped so pretty. Anybody who's gotten a Broken Binding book knows it comes wrapped like a present with a little tie, and then you get a cute little sticker on the top. Sometimes they have bookmarks that match the books, and I've been very impressed with their packaging, which is a weird thing to note, but truly it's very nice. After that, we have Goldsboro. This is one of the only ones on the list also that I don't have anything from, so apologies for that, but they also are a retailer. They have exclusives, and then they have a subscription. I think it's kind of like the Broken Binding. Obviously, it has that same list of hybrid components to it, but again, I've never purchased anything from them. But man, the special editions I have seen from them, their exclusives and whatnot, are very, very pretty. I only had one listed that, from what I could tell when I was looking through their website, there was only one that was purely just subscription based, and that was Crate. I think sometimes you can purchase past boxes, but as far as having a shop available, I didn't really see a shop option unfortunately. So I'm not really sure if they have anything outside of their subscription. The Bookish Box makes some really, really beautiful editions. They often have their own covers. The designs are really, really pretty. And they're a little bit of a hybrid in that you can be on their newsletter and you can be notified of when something's available, so your chances of getting it are higher. And then they have a shop, so if it doesn't sell out, you can buy it. But then they also sell merchandise. And it's a mix of a lot of different things. So I'm going to categorize this one as hybrid and leave it at that. I think that the price is fairly reasonable for what you get. They do add a lot of extra things. So you get the sprayed edges, you get a different cover, you get a naked hardback that's really pretty, you get something on the inside cover. So I do quite like the editions that I've seen from them. I think if you're somebody who likes fantasy romance, they're the box to keep an eye on because they do a lot more of it than I've seen from a lot of other companies. Now for what I'm categorizing, it's just retailer, but it's still helpful to know because I have seen some really beautiful editions and wondered, where's that from? And then it turns out to be from one of these. So we have Waterstones and Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble is getting a lot more into the exclusives. Sometimes there's not much about it that's very exclusive at all. It's just maybe a tiny bit of bonus content. And then other times they go all out and they make a really pretty edition. And I think they're starting to make more. So Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, which is UK based, sometimes they have breathtaking editions and they're the same price, weirdly, a lot of them, as what the regular edition would be. So as far as price goes, I think they're pretty good. Barnes & Noble, it's mixed because like I said, sometimes it's not that special, but sometimes it's pretty nice. So similarly to Waterstones, the price of the special edition is often about the same as the regular. It's just a matter of how special it is. And then of course you get the Barnes & Noble classics and things like that. If you live in the US, I'm sure you've walked into a Barnes & Noble and seen them. If you live somewhere where there's not a Barnes & Noble, you've probably seen a lot of them on people's shelves. I hope they do more of those for fantasy because I don't really know very many, but Barnes & Noble, Waterstones, that's where you're going to see some of the exclusives as well. And then they have websites that you can just buy them from. There's no subscription or anything like that. And then we have Kickstarter. I'm including this because there have been times that I've seen a special edition of something and thought, where is that from? And it's just from a Kickstarter. And I think because of Sanderson's Kickstarter, a lot of people think, oh wow, this is becoming a new thing. But there have been authors who have been doing Kickstarter editions for a while. So if you are curious, I would recommend, if there's an author that you really like and maybe they're not as big of a name, and there's a chance that sometimes they self-publish, maybe see if you can sign up for a newsletter by them or follow them on social media if you have social media. That way, if they are doing some kind of Kickstarter campaign, then you'll know about it. Now getting into the where to buy and how likely you are to get them if you didn't buy them initially. So I kind of went through this a little bit as I was talking about the various different ones. The ones I listed under newsletter are the ones that I really, really, really recommend. If you like the editions from those companies, look for some kind of newsletter subscription, I guess you could call it, but look for some kind of newsletter email sign up because they are probably not going to be available. That maybe is less true for LitJoy crates, but for Folio, Easton Press, Grimm, and Subterranean, they're not going to, I maybe have seen them on eBay, but usually it's hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So it's tough. And I guess you could say eBay is the place to buy it, but I think just if you can, try to be notified immediately. And if you have the money, you're probably going to want to get it immediately. For the hybrid ones, the library box, it was really easy to get that sleeve. It might still be available, the one for Babbel, but because it's a smaller company, I think that you're going to want to just try to follow that company if you like the products that they make and buy them when they're available. I think secondhand is not going to be as much of an option, but I also think it's not going to sell out immediately and they're only going to make so many, and so you have to get your hands on it immediately. They're not popular enough where it's going to sell out before it's even available to the general public sort of situation. So I don't think you have to worry too much about things not being available there. You should be able to get your hands on them. Owlcrate, Illumicrate, Fairy Loot. This is where I highly recommend Pango. The way Pango works is that it is essentially an online bookstore via an app. And it is so easy to use whether you're buying something or you're selling something. And I have used it for both and it is so convenient. So the way it works is, let's say I have something that I want to sell, then I can just get the ISBN and it'll fill in the information for me, take a picture of it, and then I can list it for whatever price that I feel is fit. And then there you go. it's listed. And if somebody buys it, you get a notification, you get an email, you can print off the shipping label so it makes it for you. And then you end up packaging it and sending it off, and that's it. It's so easy, and you can get what are called PangoBooks. So you can continue to use the money you've made on the app, or you can send it on over to your bank account. I kind of like keeping it in the app because then I think of it as store credit, like I would with a local used bookstore, and then you can use that anytime you want to buy something. So it's really, really convenient. It's so easy to use. And then from the buying end, you just can search something. You can sometimes search things by the boxes we've talked about. So if I'm looking for a Fairy Loot edition of something, I can just type in Fairy Loot and then Babble if you want, something like that. And a lot of times it'll bring up the various different things. And I find previously, I used to look on buy-sell trade groups on Facebook. And I do still recommend doing that, even though I know, one, a lot of people don't have Facebook anymore. I literally only have it for buy-sell trade groups. But buy-sell trade groups, it's kind of tricky because you just have to wait and hope that you notice when somebody posts the edition you're looking for. And a lot of times they're really, really marked up. And on top of that, a lot of times it's hard to tell if somebody's already purchased it. So then you have to message the person privately, and it's very much just, you have to communicate with the person. There's no actual means of it being set up nicely for you already. So it's inconvenient, even though you can find the things you're looking for. So even though Facebook is Facebook, I still would say that's a good place to maybe find a lot of these. But Pango is so much more convenient. So I gave the example if I'm looking for Fairy Loot Babble. You can wish list something if you want to keep your eye on it, but maybe you're not sure if you want to purchase it immediately. The last few purchases I have made on Pango, I have made with my PangoBooks, and they have been for special editions. I found the LitJoy subscription service that they just started. I found one of those books on Pango. I found an Illumicrate edition because I'm not subscribed to Illumicrate currently. And there was a book that as soon as I saw it, I was like, dang it, I hope it shows up. And then as soon as I saw people on Instagram, they were getting their books in, I was like, that means somebody's gotten theirs and they're selling it. And I immediately went to Pango, and there it was. And the nice thing is you can set notifications on Pango. If there's something you're looking for, but currently nobody's selling it, as soon as a listing goes up with those words in it, it will notify you. So you can immediately jump on it. And that's what I did for the Illumicrate book that I was interested in. And a lot of times people don't have the prices outrageous. I think a lot of the times they're pretty reasonable on there. And I think that the way it's set up, it kind of encourages you to be a little bit more competitive with your prices that you're looking to charge people for. Because if you put up $600 for a trilogy and somebody else is selling it for $100, people are going to buy the one that's $100 before they're going to buy the one that's $600. And then you just come away looking a little silly. So it encourages people to be reasonable when they're selling things secondhand, which is needed because people will sell these special editions for so much money. And you do run into the problem of people buying things just so they can sell them after. And I know that's a very irritating thing for a lot of individuals. So definitely highly recommend Pango. I'll have information for them linked. And I think Pango is looking to try and get bigger and bigger and grow because it is a newer app, but it's one of my favorites, and I'm really, really grateful to be working with them. A big thank you to Pango. Another area would be local used bookstores. I have actually found some special editions at my local used bookstores. I know not everybody has that option available to them, and I know a lot of people don't live in areas where they even can get to a bookstore easily, so this is a little bit trickier, and it's a little bit more of a scavenger hunt, and you're gonna end up not having a lot of success a lot of times. But there was one time I found that really, really expensive, what my friend Leanna calls the Fabio edition of Name of the Wind. They just had it for really cheap at my local bookstore, and then I gave it to somebody I knew. And then I have found Illumicrate editions, Fairy Loot editions. I actually found a broken binding edition, which shocked me because that's a newer one and it's not that huge. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, really? And I almost got it just because, even though I already had it, I was like, because somebody's going to be looking for this. So anyway, they have a lot of editions. Did I buy it? I think I bought it for a friend. I did buy it for a friend. Anyway, point is, they use bookstores, you can find some stuff. It's pretty exciting. It's very exciting, actually. Really quick, I wanted to mention the website and app Mercari. I know this is one where a lot of people have had a lot of success. I tried them once and I did not have a good experience, so I hesitate to even bring them up as a result of this, but I figured knowing that I had a negative experience is helpful information for you as well. So just to reiterate, I have had success finding things at my local bookstores and buying things from Facebook buy-sell trade groups. They're not as easy, of course, to find what you're looking for. It is more of that scavenger hunt I was describing, but I've had success and I have always found everybody to be trustworthy over there. Pango has been a breeze. It's always really easy. Mercari should have been. That's what's frustrating, is that they have listings. You can just search what you're looking for. I found something I was looking for. I purchased it, and then I was waiting, and it wasn't being shipped. Finally, after a pretty significant amount of time, the seller messaged me to ask if I was still interested in the product. And then I told them, yes, I am still interested. And they said, great. And then not too long after, I got an email notification that I had been refunded for the product. And I went back through the conversation and I saw they said they would be shipping the book that day. And I responded to that and I said, thank you. So there was an acknowledgement of that. And I waited thinking maybe it was just an automated thing because of the amount of time that had passed between when I'd purchased it and it being shipped out. That was not the case. So after a while, I couldn't even continue the conversation because of the way it was set up, where it wouldn't let me contact the seller via that chat, because I don't know if the seller turned that chat off or if it was basically treating it like that product had already been sold or it was no longer available. But I ended up having to ask the seller as a question on another product they were selling. And so I asked them if they had ever shipped it out. And their response was, you should have been refunded. And then I asked what was the reason for the cancellation of the order, and then they never replied. So I did get my money back, but the whole thing was very frustrating. So those are my suggestions for how to find these secondhand. I do think, though, if you can follow them on Instagram, that way you know. For example, Fairy Loot will tell you this is when we're gonna send out the email and when it's gonna go on sale. And so you can put a note in your phone or you can put a note in your calendar and you can make sure you're ready to go. I will have a lot of the information that I went over in the description bar down below. That way you can reference back to this. And if you have any other tips and tricks, if you have any other special edition companies that I didn't mention that you'd like to list, feel free to do so. I want this to be as helpful to anybody that comes here as possible. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. A big thank you again to Pango for working with me on this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll see you later. Bye.